Mike Robosi, in for the Harness Players podcast this week. Ray Cotolo off doing his thing at the Harrisburg sale. Capable replacement, though, Mr. Kevin Plowcha, who is currently muted. Hopefully he unmutes to talk about the Century Mile card that we got going on this Saturday, Kevin. We have the Alberta Bred Super Finals. Lots of big pots here. They have over 400,000 in purses. And I know you're doing the write-ups currently for Mohawk for DRF Harness, so you're obviously following Canadian racing as much as anybody that I personally know. So welcome in.
Mike, thank you. Been a while since we've had one-on-one podcast adventure together, I think. Following the Mohawk circuit, I'd say pretty closely. And if you glance at the drivers in list, you will notice a certain Mr. Doug McNair is here for Super Final night, listed in all 12 races, including the aforementioned 4 Super Finals. So interesting to see him make the trip, and curious to see how that's going to influence some of these pools, as obviously he's listed on a couple potential contenders in these Super Finals. We'll get to it. But yeah, Mike, happy to be here, ready to talk some Century Mile.
Absolutely. And when you mentioned McNair showing up, he's going to have a definite effect on the pools, because people see a upper tier circuit driver like that show up on a night like this, and he's going to command attention. And, he typically is going to put horses in play. That is his style. And that is very useful, especially at these smaller tracks. A lot of these guys, they don't necessarily defer whenever the big money's on the line and things, but he's going to get a respect just as similar as somebody, that's a major league type player drops down into, one of these circuits like this. They're going to get some respect. So, and it's well-deserved. Obviously, Doug McNair, one of the top drivers in Canada. So the fact that he shows up here, speaks to the level of this card at Century Mile. So it's very interesting. They have the 4 Super Finals, and they got some consolations also. We're just going to look at the finals, I think, for this podcast for Saturday night. And it's Saturday, November the 8th, and it's 8:15 Eastern time, 6:15 on Mountain time, which is Alberta time. Thanks to Murray Slaw for keeping us straight on that. Murray, I think, is on his way. Hopefully he'll catch this podcast, but he's in California. He made his trek to California for the week. He should have came a week earlier, though. I would like to hang out with you at the Breeders' Cup, Murray. Kevin, we really didn't talk about any Breeders' Crown. I know it's been a few weeks. We had Breeders' Cup last week. We had the week off as I was in San Diego for the races. But your favorite horse, Louprint, obviously had some trouble there, and it came to pass that he was injured for that final there for the Breeders' Crown. Unfortunate end to his season. Certainly had a fantastic one. You want to speak to him a little bit before we get into this card?
Yeah, I can. Just the report that he was racing injured was very surprising, and obviously, he paced in 48-4, but certainly visually was not up to the standard that I think we knew him to be at, which was, let's face it, the top of the mountain. And a very fun horse to watch. Ronnie ran a Breeders' Crown Championship last season at 2. Just an incredible horse, and he is officially retired as of a few days ago, and very intrigued to see what his offspring will do, as obviously you know the likes of Poppy Rob Hanover and his offspring and what they did right away, and how much of a hot commodity they were. I would say Louprint is going to be equally as coveted, I would say, as he stands in, I want to say it's Ohio. Don't quote me on that, but wherever he's standing, he's going to be a hot commodity.
Yeah, the Ohio harness racing landscape right now is quite extensive between all their fair racing and their tracks. That lots of big money in Ohio, so you want to get some of the top sires going there for sure. So that's interesting. Of course, champion of the Breeders' Crown at 2, undefeated until the Breeders' Crown this year at 3. So he's going to be, I would think, a fantastic sire. What was your take on Breeders' Crown overall, Kevin? I felt that this was one of the better Breeders' Crowns in the past several years. The racing was very competitive. The handle was pretty solid. I really enjoyed the races. You had plenty of upsets. You had horses that finished off their seasons very positively. I just thought this was one of my favorite Breeders' Crowns for several years.
I think Friday as a whole was just unbelievable. I thought with Storybook Love and the way that she was able to just glide up the inside as effortlessly as she moved. Apex came up short in the 2-year-old Colton Gelding trot, but that opened the door for Spencer Hanover to survive a quick inquiry. Bojangles was 12 for 12. I mean, that whole, and Luadipa, I can't forget Luadipa, Mike. You know that. I've been on that horse since day one. I was the one tweeting about her, how she was the full sister who looks good in Lulu. There's another horse that I was too in love with, probably. I bet her maybe a few more times than I should have at the Red Mile. But, I mean, Saturday was just as good, I thought. I mean, a couple of, obviously a major scratch with Twin B Joe Fresh scratching lane. That opened the door to Always Naughty to step forward with another huge effort. You got 6-5 on Yotilli, which I'm sure her backers were quite pleased about. And just a couple of major upsets. Obviously, Meshuggah, a horse that I know Ray mentioned on the
roundtable. Yeah.
But a horse that got his trip. And when he's able to just sit inside like that, and he paid $127. That's what he does. Lexus Cody was upset. And, the winner of that Glamour Boards final, Sipping on Sea Rock, he was a horse that coming out of the Adios, he went down to the Red Mile. I thought he was coming back into top form, and he went down to the Red Mile. Now, say what you want about the Red Mile, but he looked at his best. He looked the best he ever had, and maybe he was coming up a little bit on the wrong end of his form cycle coming into the Breeders' Crown, but he got the job done. He paid almost $12. Just an exceptional weekend, I thought. I know we might be a couple weekends removed from it, but I mean, looking back, I thought a big success and some very excellent racing.
Absolutely, and they moved to Scioto next year. That'll be very interesting to have the Breeders' Crown show up there. Yeah, you're just a hop, skip, and a jump there now from living in Ohio there in Northfield, but maybe not quite a hop, skip, and a jump.
It's a couple hours. It goes by quick, I think. But yeah, having it in Scioto, when was the last time with Pocono, probably? Last time it was at a 5.
I think so, absolutely. And I was at that Breeders' Crown, actually. That was, that was quite a while ago. That was almost 10 years, yeah?
Yeah.
We'd have to look that up. Ray would know right off the bat. Enough Breeders' Crown. Let's talk Century Mile here for this weekend, and this is Saturday, November the 8th. Let's look at these super finals here. But first, Kevin, I want to mention, of course, the most popular, I think, horse in Alberta is Shark Weekend. Hasn't really quite been himself in his past 3 starts. Now he gets a drop. He gets Lasix. He's in race number 5. He's going to be about 1 to 100. Does he finally get himself back together? I know I really didn't prep you for this necessarily, Kevin, but everybody knows Shark Week. Is he going to get back to himself on Saturday night?
Well, he's adding Lasix, which is interesting. And, this is probably the spot where he has to rebound, right? I mean, when was the last time you saw Shark Week in a race that said claiming 15,000 next to it, right? I mean, just very interesting to see that he's just not himself right now. And you know what? That happens to every horse loses. Every horse is in goes into a bit of a funk. He's 7 years old. He's not going to be pacing sub 150 miles forever. But this is his opportunity to drop back down and sort of, remind everybody how good of a horse he is. And I think he'll be able to do that. He draws well. He's adding Lasix, and he's dropping from facing some pretty nice horses up there in the likes of Mercedes and Midnight Mover, some of the week-to-week preferred types. So I think he gets back to himself.
Yeah, he jumps in that condition. It's numbers of 2,500 last 3. So he gets in under that condition. There'll be no tags, I wouldn't think, for Shark Week. At least
I would hope not, no.
Right now. Let's go to the super finals, though, Kevin. And we're going to start in race number 7. And we got 2-year-old Colts and Geldings here. They're going for 90,000. Now, the Great Shark starts from the rail and has 6 straight wins there on the card and some blowout wins at that. He looks quite faster than most of these here. But, maybe can we get an upset from the 4, Libra Mundi? You got Brandon Campbell training, driving. This horse is coming on recently, has shown the ability to kick sub 28 in miles. If you look back to that October 10th line, was able to, now, albeit off a perfect trip, but typically when you get Campbell driving, he puts them in the right spots. 8 to 1 morning line. Can they upset the favorite here, or what's your thoughts?
I think he has a big chance to upset the favorite, actually. If you go back and watch his replay from his latest on Halloween night, I thought he raced huge. He had lots of pace at 3/4. He was going to flip off cover 3 wide. He had to actually re-engage because the horse in front of him made a break. So that kind of stopped his momentum and maybe forced him even a bit wider than he wanted to go. And the fact that he re-engaged like that and was able to finish second, I thought that was a huge effort from him. And I think you're going to get the right price. Now, I'm curious to get your take on this. Who goes off the favorite between the 1 and the 6? Because last time the Great Shark was 4-5, Ruler of Dragons was 3-5, and now Ruler of Dragons gets Doug McNair, but it's off the rail, so might have the advantage in terms of just getting to the front easier and maybe even holding off a potential quarter move and just forcing that horse into the pocket. Real quick, who do you think goes off favorite between the 1 and the 6?
I think the 6 will be favored just with the McNair factor there. And a rare loss for Roller of Dragons last time. Now, big money on the line here. But a lot of the ones next to the Great Shark. It's hard to fault that. So people see that. I do think the driver, though, there will tell the story, and Roller of Dragons will likely be favored again. But I think it'll be close, similar to last time. They were within 30 cents of each other, and I think that could be very similar, which will up that price there on Libra Monday if you're interested in that one. Kevin, anybody else in this race that you might be interested in? I mean, when they go for big pots like this, sometimes you can get some interesting results, albeit we talked about some of the Breeders' Crown races that went to some big prices. Maybe a horse like Mayhem and Madness. I know you have an outside post there, but this horse is another one that likes to come from off the pace. Did make a break last time when favored. This one have a shot here, but has to really maybe behave, I would think.
Yeah, he's quirky, but he's quick, I think. And that was going to be the horse that I mentioned. I think if there's any other logical horse, it would be Mayhem and Madness. And look, you're going to get 10 times the price, right? I mean, he was 6-5 last week going up against Libra Mundi, but now he's up against these two killers in here. I mean, you might even get 15 times the price on Mayhem and Madness, especially with that wide post. So, I mean, if you think he's going to bring his best, the price will certainly be right.
Just want to real quick mention some multis that are offered at Century Mile. I didn't. You got a pick 5 that starts early in that first race, and then you got a late pick 4 also that starts later in the card. We have 12 races at Century Mile, so race number 9 brings that pick 4. We're going to look at race 8 before that, though, and there's another $90,000 super final here for the 3-year-old fillies, Kevin, and you have the matchup here with the 3 Custard Dolce. Taking on Made Me Change My Mind. I think those two will be the top 2 in the wagering. Both have done very well this year. Custard Dolce, 235,000, 8 wins in 11 starts, and is rounding back into form. Took a little time off there from August, and the last 2 starts have been nice wins. Adding Lasix at very, very short prices. Does the beat go on here, or again, can we maybe see an upset?
I think it does, although if you're trying to play against her, I mean, you could see her maybe getting into a bit of trouble if Giesbrecht maybe gets a little bit too confident in what he has. Also, she's been off a few weeks. Real quick, wanted to mention there is a pick 3 that starts in race 6. So 6, 7, 8, that's going to cover the first 2 finals that we're talking about here. But Custard Dolce, she never really looked like a loser in her latest, which if you watch that replay, you may be a bit confused because it has her on the little graphic on the bottom of the screen with the running numbers. It has her first over, but she's actually third over. And yeah, it got a little bit confusing the first time I watched it. But I mean, Giesbrecht's just sitting chilly, gave her a couple of taps down the stretch, but she never really looked like a loser. I don't think she's going to lose this time. She was 1-5 last time, and I think she's going to be the one to beat again. Although I thought Made Me Change My Mind. Whenever Room opened up, she did show similar solid kick. That was a bit of a interesting scenario that she was in around the final turn. The horse that was inside of her kind of went off the course, which gave her enough room to slide up the inside. But she's shown enough gate speed off the car that she could sit a nice trip up front. And Custard's rendition comes off a nice win by 3 lengths and gets McNair. Might make her take more money than she probably should. Another horse with an 8-hole that's going to work off the pace. And she got a nice setup up front, I thought last time. So if she gets into the number, she's probably not going to make it pay very much. So maybe go swinging with some other big long shots if you're trying to play trifectas. But I don't see a way to get past Custard Dolce unless she gets into some trouble.
Yeah, make me change my mind though. I was able to beat that one earlier in August that was at Century Downs. So Century Mile, a little bit of a different story, but certainly has shown the ability to race at that top level. She's made 167,000, so hard to fault her, and comes off a nice qualifier with a very sharp kick. So I think maybe if you're looking to back someone, I think at a fair enough price, especially with all that money that Custer Dolce likes to take. Made me change my mind. Might be that right enough price to try to take a shot here in this super final for Saturday. It's race number 8. Another very interesting race there, those 3-year-old fillies. And you mentioned McNair, and this horse, I mean, it comes out of some of those condition claiming races. That horse is going to take a fair amount of money. This would be a horse that I would be probably looking to fade out of gimmicks here, just because the fact that this one has to step up. But the barn's going very well. If you look, 14 wins and 55 starts. So whenever they send them over, they typically race well, and somehow you get McNair here for this final. So there's things to like there. If you do think that this one can do something. For me though, if you're going to use the favorites, like you said, you need something underneath to try to make some of the multis pay. Let's jump to the next super final we're going to look at, and it's race number 10 here, and this is a 2-year-old fillies here. And Kevin, this is a little bit more of a wide open race. I know BA Dragon is 9-5 on the morning line, but it comes off a loss at 1-2 on October 31st, Halloween. There's some of these others that are in form here. Can we find an upset now?
I think you could. I think you could. I'm going to talk about BA Dragon first, although I have a bit of hesitation with her. She got going far too late, obviously. If you watch that replay, she was just never really in a position to a winning position, I guess you could call it. She just got going far too late. But it looked like, just visually, it took a lot of work. It looked like she had to work pretty hard to get up in second. Now, take that as you will. Go back and watch the replay yourself. But it's hard to not see McNair just getting to the front and just rating and going, right? I mean, he's one of the only drivers that I really trust. He's probably the driver I trust most at Mohawk and in general, because I know he's going to give the horse a chance. And if no one wants to take their shot, I know they're going for 90K, so I would assume there might be a little more action than maybe a normal day. But it's hard for me it's just lingering in the back of my head. He gets to the front with her and just gets a 58 and change middle half and paces away in 28 and change. However, Blue Star Strike, I thought she looked good last week. She got a well-rated, she got a nice middle half, and she drew away. Now, slower final quarter, but she still won by 2 3/4 lengths, and that was over BA Dragon. Now you get Brandon Campbell, who could even get a little bit more out of her and maybe even sit a pocket trip and go by. And again, the McNair factor. Also, BA Dragon hasn't been higher than 3-5 in her last 5 starts. So you put all that together, maybe Blue Star Strike is the horse to take a shot with. Terrible Custard, I think, is interesting. This isn't something that I've mentioned yet, although I do think it has the possibility to happen in race 7 with Libra Mundi and even race 8 with Custard's rendition. Now, normally you talk about a fast pace to allow horses to close in late. But something that I've noticed just a little bit with Century Miles, that the fractions can sometimes be a bit wonky. And when horses go too slow up front, they can allow closers to just kind of glide up and get into the race. And all of a sudden they get out sprinted and you think, oh man, this horse was no good. But they let other horses into the race. And I think Terrible Custard is a horse that I think at an inflated number, just 1 for 7 this year, but has raced well in her last few starts, is a horse that could get towed into it just slowly, just methodical, working into the race, and then maybe out sprints the top 2 favorites late. And that could be a horse that you use. And I have to mention, because Alberta produces some of the best named horses that I have seen. Where was the one that racing? Chuck U Farley.
Here
I like Chuck U. We have Just My Buck and Luck here in this final.
Apps a buck and Litley, like they used to say around here. Of course, we're Pirate fans, so we used to say that. Actually, when the Pirates were actually winning, I don't know. That was, you might have been 5 years old at that point, Kevin. It's been quite a bit. I do think that this race sets up for something a little different, because you don't have the dominant horse. Some of these first couple super finals we looked at, you've had dominant horses that have dominated the whole season. Whatnot. You got 2-year-old filly Pacers here, and they've taken turns beating each other. A lot of them have 1 or 2 wins. I know you have the BA Dragon with the 4, wins in 3 seconds. So yeah, it has been very, very good so far this year. But limited starts now, McNair, you're going to have to swallow 1 to 5 there. I'm not sure that she's a 1 to 5 shot in this race, especially with some of the other ones that are starting to come on, like the Blue Star Strikes of the world. I do think that maybe she's going to have to earn it here. We'll see if some of these others want to try to push early, because that might be their only chance. And maybe you get some of these ones that are underexposed. They show up in the final here. I do think that this one is just a little bit more wide open, and I'd be more interested in opposing BA Dragon, especially in that late pick 4 that starts in race number 9. You could maybe look to try to spread out a little bit, and if you can get a price in this race and beat McNair, you certainly can get a really nice payoff in that late pick 4 at Century Mile for Saturday. Go to the last race, and go ahead, Kevin.
I was going to just jump in with one more thing. If we're talking like win bet, I think Blue Star Strike is going to be a solid second choice, and it's going to be good enough to take a shot, I'd say, with a win bet. And maybe a horse like Jabba Dabba Doo with just 4 career starts, starting from the second tier. Now, she came up short 2 back whenever she was up near the front, but 3 back at track on 2, kicked 27-2. So it could be a horse that shows her best for that same Justin Curry barn that we mentioned earlier. Maybe a horse that is definitely going to be a price that you might want to consider underneath.
Yeah, and you got some top barns in this race also. I mean, you have Travis Ellis, you have Nathan Sobey, and you mentioned the Curry barn, all going very well, that can bring them over, that can contend in a race like this. So pretty wide open race number 10, I think, on Saturday at Century Mile. Let's go to the last, and this is the 12th race on this Century Mile card for Saturday. Another super final here, going for $90,000. It's 3-year-old Colts and Geldings, and another really solid race here. You have the favorites likely going to be Outlaw Minute by a Minute, that has had a really nice season. 3 wins though in 6 seconds, has made that $125,000. You see a lot of second place finishes, including one in that Western Canadian Derby. They were going for over 100,000 in that race. Raced really well in there, but has to face horses like Mama's Work of Art, who has had a nice season also, has made plenty of money, was 3rd in that spot in that Western Canadian Derby. I think Catitude is an interesting contender in this spot, because you got the McNair factor again. So Kevin, how are we going to get paid here in this last race?
I really wanted to take a shot against Outlaw Minute by Minute, who is just so obviously the logical horse. But all those second place finishes kind of scare me a little bit, and maybe scare me off to the point of trying a few others. And maybe in this final leg of the late pick 4, you get a little spready and hope to beat this favorite, who, he has the kick. Obviously, it's just a matter of if he gets the right trip. And you saw how much gate speed he's shown in those qualifiers. So, could be a spot where you just get run over, maybe if you try to bet against him. But another horse that you didn't mention yet, I think he's quirky but quick. He has a mark of 53 this year. West Coast McCoy. I think it's interesting that he comes back in this spot, in this super final, off a qualifier where he kicked 26-4 in the final quarter. I think if you're going to take a shot with a horse, now I know he hasn't raced since August, but I think it's just more confidence that their connections are bringing him back in this spot after 2 qualifiers. I'd like to think that he's going to be pretty well revved up for this effort. So maybe he's one that you can use. I agree with Catitude because of the McNair factor. He could be one to challenge Outlaw Minute by Minute early if that one shows gate speed. And I agree also with Mama's Work of Art. I thought that horse stayed on very well after sitting up close near some pretty quick fractions. They got to the half in 56. That opening quarter was 27 flat, and he was parked on the outside. So I thought he went a pretty big effort, and he's one that if he can work out a trip from the second tier, a stalking trip, I think he's definitely interesting. So I would say late pick 4, at least for me. I'll take some swings. I'll probably go 3, 7, 9, try to beat the 6, though I understand that he is very logical in there.
Yeah, interesting that you like that horse coming off the bench, but that 26-4 is intriguing, and a very quick qualifier there on October the 25th. So maybe back and ready to roll. You got Disco Dancer off a claim for the Rebecca Canick barn. We know how dangerous she is off claims, and this is a big step up for this horse, but you're adding Lasix. You got an inside post, 12-1 morning line. So one that you should pay attention to, especially if you're trying to fill out tries and supers. May not be quite as good as some of the stars in this race, but I do think that is interesting for a barn that can turn horses around very quickly. So keep an eye on Disco Dancer there. I do think that a Mama's Work of Art, drawing that outside post, you could get a little bit of a price now, and that 9 post can be difficult. So we'll see. I do think that maybe that could help drift the price up. You got Dave Kelly, who's driven this horse all year. Very consistent, right? 9 times out of 11, 1, 2, 3. So it has a little bit of a finish. Just needs a trip there. So there's a pretty nice super final to finish there for the 3-year-old Colts and Geldings. And Kevin, we got really nice races on Saturday night there at Century Mile. We got lots of multis to shoot at. Hopefully some big pulls.
Yeah, it's going to be a great night of racing, and just peeking at that opening leg of that late pick 4, get a big driver switch on Maxima Station, Brandon Campbell up, and Matus, a horse dropping from the preferred, a horse facing off against the likes of Shark Week. So a very competitive late pick 4 sequence, a ton of money on the line, going to be some big pots to chase, I think, and some good wagering opportunities here on this.
Kevin left, but he's coming back. Hopefully, come back, Kevin. We miss you, Kevin. Kevin's internet typically is poor, but we do appreciate Kevin's thoughts. And you can go to NahooPicks.com and check out the Century Mile page. And typically Murray Slaw has some picks for us for Century Mile. And so if you can go to Nahoo Picks and check out those selections, very solid. Obviously, Murray is the announcer at Century Downs, but he follows this racing. And he will have some great thoughts on these races, even though he's typically vacationing at this time. Murray likes to go to the West Coast, and I know he has made his trip there. So we do appreciate Murray doing the work there. Appreciate Kevin for coming in and doing the podcast. Hopefully, he gets some better internet for us. Kevin, are you there? No, still he's leaving. So we're going to wrap it up. Harness Players Podcast. Glad to be back. Glad to be covering Century Mile. I appreciate their sponsorship, of course. Appreciate Diamond Creek Farm and a lot of the sponsorship that they've given us this year so far. And we appreciate you guys watching the Harness Players Podcast. We should be back next week. We have some other podcast plans for Century for that fall Final Four that's going to be taking place at the Meadowlands. So check into those things. Until then, we'll see you all next time.